Good evening. Welcome to Defacto Review, our weekly in-depth analysis on the current news and affairs with our commentator and economist, Mr. Jargal Defacto.
Good evening.
And I'm your host, Namsadzit. You can join in on our conversation on MNB World Facebook page and on Twitter with #Jargal_Defacto. Now let's take a look at today's topics. Mongolia has been removed from the Financial Action Task Force greylist. Land trade and child-unfriendly Ulaanbaatar. The election and human rights. Now let's get into our first topic. Mongolia was added to the Financial Action Task Force on money laundering grey list in October of 2019. This Friday, authorities from the Bank of Mongolia, the Ministry of Finance and other government agencies held a press conference to announce that Mongolia has been officially removed from the Financial Action Task Force grey list. They noted that Mongolia's credit rating has not been changed. So our first question is that Mongolia has been removed from the FATF grey list. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, de jure, Mongolia has not yet removed, as the final decisions will be made on June 24th. And on that day, Mongolian people also will make own decisions on the current government and next government. The reason I'm saying that is because the last, what the the Ministry of Finance, FRC were saying is about the report back from the headquarters of or secretariat of the FATF on successful implementing by Mongolia the tasks asked to do so early in February. So Mongolia has done so far their homework. The report was reports were successfully introduced, and Secretariat said it's satisfactory. So the final decision is still to come. Our politicians are in hurry inform like it's completed before the election, of course, any other politicians. What exactly had happened? That's more deserves discussions, because Mongolia was listed in the grey list of FATF. Transfer of money to Mongolia and from where, of course, was very long, because commercial banks have changed their corresponding banks abroad, and those banks have needed more time to check about the participants of this money transfer. Of course, secondly, not substantial foreign direct investments come to the country for this year so far. So all these things say that Mongolia needs, of course, to be removed from the list. What was the problem with the list? There are so many things required. Mongolia have been doing, as the Minister of Finance said, 6 things they were supposed to do. But there are two things. First, Mongolia needs to completely solve, and I don't think we have solved completely. First, it is about the related agencies do not control properly all financial transactions institutions. First of all, it is about it's precious metals, real estate trades. These were not under the control. And thanks to this FATF requirements, looks like FRC had moved forward, and so far 170 real estate sales broker companies are registered or requested, and 161 of them are officially got permission. 139 precious metals traders are registered, and some more requested. So the materials of their requests, their applications are being considered. And question comes, how come that these organizations, two industries, real estate and precious metals, have been not registered up to now? That's the question to the FRC, and thanks to grey list, they are registering, because these two industries were the source of a lot grey economy in the country. And we had not proper statistics about how many apartments are built, sold, and houses. We don't have a proper statistics, and finally, I hope we will get it. Second problem we were in the gray list was the justice wing of the power is not working properly. And interesting to note that anti-corruption agency, police, general intelligence agency, procureur, how we call it, and judge, their heads all were reporting to gray list, the headquarter, FATF headquarter, and but they have, according to the Ministry of Finance, and I'm just wondering if this Ministry of Finance and the FRC can report to us as well, to the society of the country, because it's obviously it is not private or secret document. It is a part of transparency of the country, governance. So they should show it. What is the reason why the judge system is not working in the country is very clear. Many scandalous, big scandalous files or cases where the courts on that cases were all the time postponed up to now. Prime ministers, head of companies, large banks, all cases are postponed. So they have a good reason to demand Mongolia to be more efficient in that field. And as okay, maybe FATF can list out Mongolia from that gray list, but I'm not sure if Mongolian public is ready to do so, as so many corrupt cases are not being solved by the justice system, in spite of changes of their leaders for last 1 year with the new president. And it looks like the shows go on, the main actors are changed, but the role is keep being played. So that's the situation with FATF, and thanks to FATF, I think two major works made one step ahead. We need many more steps. Mongolian public needs, I mean.
So does removal from the grey list of the FATF mean that Mongolia will not be included in the European Union high-risk third countries?
Well, according to the representative of the European Union in Mongolia, looks like many our relations with the European Union are not touched at all by this intention of listing Mongolia into the black list, which says basically that if we are delisted from the grey list of FATF, not very long after we will be delisted also from that black list of the European Union.
So they also announced that Mongolia's credit rating hasn't changed. So what's your take on this?
Well, you know, there are three major credit agencies in the world: Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. Internationally recognized. They rate the state of any sovereign who issued bond to the international market for the investors. This information comes, very important information. And Fitch, one of these three, had issued new rating of Mongolia, which is not changing. It is a B according to their ranking, and outlook is stable. And they say, according to their information on their website, that of course COVID-19 had impacted on the Mongolian economy like all other countries, but the impact of the shock will be largely temporary, with the economy rebounding strongly and the government debt to GDP ratio starting to decline again in 2021 after Mongolia pays a couple bonds due to that year. And plus Mongolia is in a strong position with multilateral agencies, bilateral creditors, to get support from their side with the current changes we do in the related to the sovereign ratings. So because of that ratings, because this is stable rating, we have a more chance to see not much change in the sovereign wealth fund ratings and interests, coupons, and yields. And as we know that this is a sovereign wealth, sovereign bonds rates, the ratings on the international market are based for private companies to raise funds from international market. So, so far, at least it is not so bad news. At least Mongolia is stable in the a year or so.
So we have managed to be removed from the grey list. So what is the government doing to be, to prevent from further such complications in the future?
Very good questions. The government, I wish to be more transparent, and those two fields I have described where we have a lot of corruption, gray economy, which is related to the financing of political parties, with the transparency level of governance. These are the concerns. In particular, inside we would like to highlight the independence of judicial system in the country, which we cannot very much pray for today, which in spite of all the promises, a lot of things to be met. And we will talk about that a little bit later.
Okay, so let's get into our second topic for today. An unfortunate incident occurred just 4 days before the International Children's Day, which Mongolia celebrates broadly. 4 children lost their lives at the National Garden Park. After the incident, the mayor of Ulaanbaatar fired the director of National Garden Park, Ms. Irtentol. So our first question is that who is exactly responsible for this tragedy?
These big questions. Actually, we are all responsible. First of all, the state, government, and city governance in particular. It is the heads of last 30 years who have done a little to combat corruption of land of Ulaanbaatar city. And the last mayor, the current mayor is trying to make some change now. So first of all, what kind of information we have? First, by in Zurich district, just the left side of a Marshall Bridge, which comes to Ichtinger, on the north side of a river, there were construction work. They have removed certain dirt for construction purpose, and the big hole was filled with river water, and the children of poor family from poor district of the city called Dinji Myanga, 4 kids were playing there, and obviously they could not. Looks like they were not able. They could not swim at all, and they all one by one sank there. Second, tragically, that what's happened, and a few days ago, before that, the Mayor Amar Sakhan had visited the place and have seen, because he was checking the biking road, and he asked to check all these illegal places where construction goes on. It's very broad issue in this country. Many construction goes without any permission. The mayor asked to check properly, and they find out that a company called Hang Talst was doing that job without legal permission, though it was a very strange thing. The permission was given by previous mayor Batul, but the current work was not illegal. That's what they say. That's what this Mongolian government looks. The true picture looks like this. One is given permission, the other is not. It's impossible also for private companies as well. But at the end, this Hang Talst company got 3.3 hectare land there to make more improvement, and in spite of they have no permission, they have not stopped. That's then where the tragedy happens. Another paradox is it was a company a woman, Narantoya, who was the head of a state agency for children. Very sarcastic, unfortunately. Ironic case in this situation. And of course, Mongolian, all of us, also in particular citizens of Ulaanbaatar, are to take responsibility as well. Why? Because in spite of their knowledge that how the city authorities, Ministry of Environmental Protection, again ironically, And districts were given lands to the left and right with competing each other. And Ulaanbaatar made a mess. Looks like no plan, if there is a plan only on the paper. And we, all citizens of Ulaanbaatar, keep silence. In spite of all this mockery, stealing our property land, few bureaucrats keep reaching, and the remaining keep staying poor, and yet we are silent like a fish, which you can catch and fry and eat, still has a silence. We very much like a fish. And I mean, in comparison, for example, with what is happening in the US, a black man was killed by a police. And now today, after a week, some 30 cities of US, people are fighting for their rights. Brutality. And that's kind of brutality as well in Mongolia, and yet we keep silence. Nobody is raising their voices except few social media postings. So what's happening? What is wrong with us? I mean, this can be everywhere, and any kid can be a victim of this kind of approach to our property. Irresponsible. So that's the question. That's the answer to your question, who's responsible.
So as you said, only a few people are posting things on social media and discussing about this. So why are the National Human Rights Commission itself and the Children's Center just staying quiet? Aren't they supposed to do something about this?
Good questions. Not only they, but many other state institutions are supposed to raise their voice. And the mayor made a speech on that, a statement. And all other districts should have a speech, and institutions. Unfortunately, Mongolia's problem is today the weakness of state institutions, which have no chance to be strong and strengthened, because every 4 years after election, everybody almost wipe it out, and the newcomers takes about 2 years to know the job and 2 years to have a bribe. So that's the problem of the country.
So all of this problem can be traced back to the sale of city, specifically illegal ones. So how do we stop this? How do we stop authorities from just selling lands illegally?
It's a matter of now civic will, civic society's voice. If we don't raise this voice, the situations are not changing. And that's the result of last 7 elections. The same people keep coming, and they are somehow getting rich. They're riding, I don't know, the most expensive cars. I think per capita, per parliament, I think per the economy, we have the richest state leaders in the world, probably. All billionaires, many billionaires are there. And more than that, they are also stealing, for example, fund for development or support of small, medium enterprises. And more than that, because if we don't raise our voice, then the criminals or people under investigations are becoming candidates to the state great chorale, which is becoming kind of a place where they are protected, like a protection place. And very funny, many criminal cases are postponed. And those who were under those investigations are becoming candidates for parliament, which says that if they win, we will have a bunch of people who either is stealing our money from small medium enterprises on the People's Party side, or many people under investigations for the corruption are becoming altogether the new rulers of this country. Well, welcome to Mongolia, and welcome to the state of our civic society. And our judge system does not work. You know, a couple of weeks ago, the Supreme Court had the General Judge of Mongolia, Mr. Batsuri, who was nominated just a year ago to this post, was resigned on his own request. and no news why he is resigned, because he was promising, for example, a year ago that he will bring the system of Western judicial standard to Mongolia. And then he is resigning silently like a fish too. So what's going on? And nobody is explaining. And he is replaced by another person, again by the nomination of the president. So the rumor is, or the guess is, this Mr. Batsurenis was doing something that the president doesn't like. What is that could be? That's what we want to know. This is at the end democratic country. The judicial system should be transparent, and the head of the system cannot run away like this. And the president office should explain that, because it is the organization which is nominating all the court system, all judges in the country. Then it is kind of approved by the parliament, but basically it is the hand of Mr. President.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, let's get into our third and last topic of today. On Thursday, former Member of Parliament, Mr. Namtabayar, an independent 2020 parliamentary election candidate for 29th Electoral District, was detained for pressuring a detective and will remain in custody until his court appearance on June the 26th. The General Prosecutor's Office is investigating Mr. Namtabayar on charges of the abuse of power. So, Mr. Namtabayar will be detained until the election campaigning is over. So, is this a violation of his right to be elected?
Of course, that's what I agree with his advocate, who says that. You know, my concern is whether Namtabayar is criminal or not, had done good things or wrong things. It is to be judged by the court rule. And somebody is arrested before this court rule which is supposed to prove a criminal or not, have done good things or bad things. And plus, this person was registered as a candidate for parliament, and yet he's arrested. So what's going on? As an individual, you can be arrested. As a candidate after registration with General Election Committee, also can be arrested. So the concern is a person is not criminal until it is approved by court rule. That's the concern more. So, and there are some cases to people to be a person to be arrested if criminally charged if the person was running away from the court system or made pressure on court related officials. Third, possibly he can make another crime or did not show up by the request of the court or the court. So none of them had happened, but suddenly said he was kind of made a pressure on a inspector. That's the sudden decisions at the end of their court preliminary discussions, as they say. So everything is, we need more rule of laws in the society, and that's very clear case where it is not there.
So on the topic of right to be elected, former President Ingbayar was not allowed to run for the parliament in the upcoming election. So what is the legal basis behind this?
That's another case. Remember, he was arrested a few years ago under 4 charges. One was corruption, the other was misusing his authority, etc. 4 charges, and he was arrested very in dramatic situations, you know. He was forced by, you know, he was carried out by showing his socks, etc. We call it socks arrest. So, or with arrest with socks. You know, what happened? I mean, we saw that all this on TV. Then he was charged with 4 charges, and then after 6 months, one charge had disappeared. They find out that it is not the case. Another 6 months, another one is charged, taken out. And after 2 years, he just was remaining with one charge. You know, charge is about taking his translated books from Korea to Ulaanbaatar without payment on board of Mongolian Airlines. That was the only charge officially remaining with this man, who is refused now because he was a criminally charged to come to the election. I'm not defending Mr. Ingpayar, he was right or not, but they're very close. Funny thing, that close. If somebody free of charge brought some things by Mongolian Airlines, I think all parliament members, almost, and many rulers in this country should be also in the prison, because they are misusing these airlines like free ticket, you know. So this is really, it shows how the court system works in this country, and how much we demand and how much we need rule of laws in Mongolia.
So our candidates are being arrested for political reasons before the election?
I think almost all the time. And now this judicial system is becoming kind of people who can buy them, bought them. The very clear case, recently the current mayor of Amar Saikhan is taking back many lands, including gardens, parks, some 13 parks which were given by previous mayor to the owner of Ulaanbaatar Bank and Trade and Development Bank. These two banks belongs to one guy. And he taken away because it was illegal. Now what's happening? They took the current mayor to the court. At the first level, they are winning in some places, so that our gardens, public places, parks, back to him again. So that's how the court system works in this country. And our court system is like, you know, in a small orchestra in a restaurant, which is paid by money, and playing the music that the guy who is paying want to hear. That's what's a true picture of our judicial system. And it must be changed. Otherwise, the whole achievements we have so far reached in this country will be ruined by these people. So it is the civic society Mongolians' voice to be stronger, united against corruption and this kind of mishandling by the court systems.
So thank you for that. And unfortunately, that is all the time we had for today. Thank you for staying with us. We will see you next week with more topics.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice evening. Goodbye.
One is